Morning, everybody. Today we're going to speak about the subject matter of obsolescence. Now, we all know, or we have an idea of what obsolescence is, i.e. your TV has got a limited life, your car's breaking down after a certain time, the obsolescence is built in, so you keep going back for repairs and so forth. So I think we all understand what obsolescence is, and that's what the discussion is about today.
So personally, I don't think anybody actually knows what obsolescence is. We do in this little room, but I don't think the audience will. So perhaps we will discuss what obsolescence really is in a multitude of devices. I think that's the first thing that we can do, is we'll discuss that. So, what's obsolescence for me? Obsolescence is like, let's imagine that I buy a 4K camera. 4K camera costs around about 1,800. That's the cheapest, to several thousand. Okay. And when I buy that, it's got the best lens you can buy. I think they're called Swiss lenses or something. The lens will last you probably 1,000 years. No, actually it won't, because glass is a fluid, and eventually it will turn back to what it really originally was. So, but the point is, the lens will last me a long time. However, what will happen is that they will come out with another device called 5G or something, or 5K or something, and that makes my camera now needs to be replaced, but not obsolete, but needs to be replaced. And then I find 2-3 years later, or even 3 years later, or 4 years later, the software in that camera doesn't really start to work properly. Software is software. It gives me glitches. And as a professional, I can't use equipment with glitches in it, because it costs a lot of money to correct a glitch. So that software is engineered to start to give me problems after around about 3 years or more. So the lifespan of that camera is very limited, and there's so much engineering going into it to actually force it to break down. So that's my example. You guys drive, you've got cell phones, so I would like to hear the audience hear your experiences of obsolescence.
If we really think about it, we all have experiences of obsolescence in our lives, especially with the technology as it is today. We all have a cell phone, as you just mentioned. Most of us have TVs. We're influenced into buying new stuff because it either breaks down, or, as you said, software. It doesn't work as well as it did before. So even if we wanted to keep the machines, then there's a limiting factor in the software itself, where they don't support it anymore. And so you're left until it actually slows down and virtually stops, and it's absolutely useless before you can do anything with it. So that's one experience. And being in the electrical business, where we deal with products and so forth, new on the market, even the basic light bulb. I mean, a light bulb can be made to last forever, but there's obsolescence built into that. You see, so it doesn't last, and they've got a perpetual customer, millions of times over.
So that's probably the best example of that light bulb, because that's on record. There's I think it's in Chicago, a fire station that proudly has a light bulb burning, and it burns 24 hours a day, and it's been burning for near enough 100 years.
Wow.
And that was an example, because that light bulb was made before they put engineered obsolescence into the light bulb. And then I think it's the Institution for Businesses, or globally, said, well, you can't make light bulbs that will last 100 years. because nobody will buy a light bulb. So you have to make it only to last like 100 hours or 800 hours, and then it will have to blow. So they had to create an entire science of how to calibrate just a light bulb to fail around about 800 hours. So we have an example of a light bulb that did not have obsolescence built into it, but actually made as a light bulb, presumably to work as long as you want it to work, until you decide to throw it away. Then you have all the other billions of light bulbs, as opposed to this one single light bulb that is burning, and making all the other light bulbs actually say, well, we've built this, so you have to keep buying it again. That's probably the best example. What about you, Mus? What's because you spoke about the cell phone, didn't you?
I mean, really, with regard to cell phones, I mean, the longest I've had a cell phone is coming up to 2 years, Mark. The software starts to go wrong, the screen starts to glitch. I've had so many problems. And always, when coming up to the renewal of my contract, it either goes wrong or they just release something that's that much better, where your one just doesn't work anymore, it just doesn't work properly anymore. And the software glitches and you just think, let me just upgrade. It's easier to upgrade, just go with the flow. And, this obsolescence makes money. I can see, if I'm going to buy something and buy it just once, same as medicine, I suppose, Mark, with their treatments. It's better for them to give it to you every day for the rest of your life as opposed to once or twice in your whole life.
I remember I was speaking to David Wayne Miller, and I said to him, look here, I can reverse diabetes, because I did it for myself. And I said to him, just because of that, the pharmaceutical industry come after me, and they shut down every avenue that I was speaking to, including the counselors, the medical board, all of them. They just would not take my call. Thereafter, they would not even take it. The phone would not even, wouldn't even ring, as if to say they have the ability to block the phone. And he goes to him, well, that's their business model, is that don't fix the leaky tire. They will never fix the leaky tire. They just want you to leak, and that's it. So you can constantly pump up the tire and spend money having the tire pumped up, because there's no money in it for them to actually give you anything that actually works. So they give you a small period and that's it. So what I'm saying on a global scale, the diseases that people are experiencing is actually engineered to make you, people out there, obsolete. In other words, you are disposable. Once you get heart disease, you're disposed. Once you get diabetes, you are disposed. Once you get any of one of these ailments, you now become disposable. And that's the model that they follow. It's right from the light bulb all the way to the cell phone, to software like Microsoft. How many of those did we have? And when he made a good one called Windows 7, people wanted it, so he forced it to become obsolescent because it ran too smoothly. People began to fix the Windows 7. When they found glitches, they began to fix it. So he didn't like it, so he brought up such a pathetic software to run their hardware, as it were, that it was engineered to obsolete itself. Hence, it needs to update itself all the time to fix the things that they put in as the obsolescence, like a leaky tire that never's going to have a patch on it. Can you give me an idea, Moss? I mean, you are essentially pharmaceutical, really. What's your...
Well, let me give you an example of what we did, say 10, 12 years ago. I was selling a product for allergy, hay fever, eczema, that kind of thing. It was called Claritin. So I'm sure you all know it. Very famous market leader. But the problem is that the license was coming off. You know, they get a certain amount of time. They get 20, 25 years where nobody can actually copy this drug and use it. They can't make it cheap. They're not allowed to make it cheap. But once it comes off patent, a lot of third-party developers can make it and sell it cheap. So what we did is that we got we came out with a new product, but it was basically a metabolite. It was like basically Claritin. When it goes in, it gets metabolized to something which makes it the active ingredient. So we went one step ahead. Instead of having to go through first-pass metabolism and to get the active ingredient, we give the active ingredient. So we're saying it's faster. It's going to work faster. It's going to work better. But it wasn't. It wasn't. It was just the same, if not worse, than the other one. So, you know, in some cases, you know, they try and say, oh, it's one step ahead. It's going to work quicker. It's going to work faster. It's going to work better. It's going to be better for you. But in reality, it's just to say, you know, it's just to extend their license even further, or get the best out of their licenses even further. So if they can make something, if they can totally dominate the market for 20, 25 years, why not dominate the market for 25, 50 years?
I think that's a good way of putting it. We've jumped right into medication because that's the thing that I had in my mind, is that we know theoretically, you know, studying Blue Zone and a variety of other things, that we actually have a very healthy, long lifespan of around about 25 years. You know, we are able to do that to 125 years, I beg your pardon, 125 years. And, you know, a man or a woman that's 125 years, that requires no aid from the pharmaceutical, no aid from the government, it requires no aid from anybody because they are self-sufficient, mentally, psychologically, food production-wise, health-wise. Somebody's going to think, you know, they're bypassing our business model and go in there, contaminate their food supply, called Monsanto, contaminate their technologies, called like light bulbs in this instance, you know, and contaminate their health, called a pharmaceutical maker of poisons and potions. So, you know, that hit me, that because we are, and as you taught us, that, you know, the men and women, the natural state of men and women is health. And they have to work very, very hard to unbalance you and move you out of health. And hence they go at you day and night to actually make you obsolescent, just as the cell phone, the light bulb, your car, and etc. How much does a cell phone cost? £800? £800 for a cell phone, and they make it obsolete within 3 years, or exactly on 3 years, because all warranties on manufacturing products actually last 3 years, which they don't tell you. They say it's a year. No, that is guaranteed by the Charter of Manufacturers, that it has to be fixed by you within 30 days if something goes wrong, because that's the manufacturer's guarantee, because that means the cell phone is, you know, faulty. But the longevity of it, they make it maximum of 3 years, whereas in reality it should be lasting as long as the components hold their integrity. And they do hold their integrity, don't they? Because if they don't, then you can say that transistor in there, you know, got rusted. Yeah, it came apart. So this is a manufacturing fault. So they engineer the software to fail, but not the hardware. Or if you drop it, and they make the glass in, you know, so brittle in a sense that they'll give you, you know, head-on collisions on the cell phone, what happens, but they don't tell you what's going to happen by dropping the cell phone as everybody else drops it, which is on the corner of the cell phone, then it smashes. It's like cars, when they say, it's like, it will protect you from crashes, but they seldomly used to do real life collision simulations where most of it is actually hit from the side because you're merging from a minor road into a major road where most of the accidents take place. But they will make head-on collisions, which is very rare. One vehicle coming in the opposite direction and hitting. It's rare. But they don't show you sideline collisions. They say, well, it's passed the test, isn't it?
I mean, I remember a time when we used to repair our own bicycles. How easy was it? I wouldn't be able to do that now. I have to go to Decathlon and get the computer sorted. I remember another time when everybody used to repair their own cars. It was a pleasure and people took pride in repairing their own cars. Even I would watch my grandmother do it. My grandmother was one of the first women in Germany to learn to drive. And her father taught her how to repair the car. And this was in the mid-30s.
Wow.
How fantastic is that? And now as a therapist, whenever I have to download new software, it means changes to the computer program I'm running, which means I cannot assess the same things I was assessing people maybe a year ago. So if somebody came to see me like 5 years ago, the software I have now is very different. I wouldn't be able to scan them, for example, for the same parasites, for the same bacteria, viruses, or you mention it. And that is also very, very frustrating, which meant that I moved away from the actually face-to-face scanning because I have enough information now how the body works to actually being able to do it online.
So it's impacted on every device. It's anything manufactured looks like it's got engineered obsolescence in it. How beneficial is it to have built-in obsolescence? How beneficial is it to us?
It's beneficial to the guys selling the products, but it's not really beneficial to us, really.
So let me speak contrary to you. All right. Every time I see you, Mus, every 6 months he's got a new cell phone. One cell phone looks better than the other.
Okay.
That looks good, doesn't it?
Okay. So it's fashion now.
So it's fashionable.
Fashion, yeah.
It's fashionable. So fashion changes. You seem to enjoy it. So what's the problem with having engineered obsolescence in a cell phone?
You've got to pay for it every time.
You pay for fashion every time, don't you? That's why
true.
you're fashionable.
That's true. That's true.
So, yeah.
I think so early on in the conversation we can see a pattern emerging really, and be it whatever product, whatever medicine, technology, it's the same pattern. They use advertising to pump us up, then it's the dump process, mass distribution, wide audience, and then we buy into that obsolescence, not knowing it's built into it, thinking it's going to be better. And then we have an acceptance of the fact that, it's old technology, because we've been convinced it may not work anymore. So there's a kind of disclaimer, isn't there? Which is not really broadcast, but we know about it and we've got used to it, that it may not last you, like a guarantee. So it's only guaranteed for so much. So we're kind of used to that, but it's the same pattern. They walk us into a situation, we purchase, buy it, and then we're buying the obsolescence because we're in agreement with it. And as an example, trying to describe, well, is it fair or isn't it fair? Why are we paying so much for this? And just the Apple phone, but not a particular model. In fact, a couple of years ago, I learnt about that a phone would only cost them at Apple about £30 to £50 to make, and some of them are £1,000 to buy. So they're getting a lot of money at the front end, plus it's a perpetual income for after 2-3 years when your contract finishes. That's no good anymore. So there's a vast profit there, isn't there? And they spend just as much on the advertising to perpetually take the money off you.
So let's, I'm now seeing a conclusion to this. A cell phone is a fashion accessory. We're using it as a cell phone accessory. Are you using it as a fashion accessory, Moss?
Probably without realising.
So it's the advertising is working.
Yes.
So it's gone into the subconscious or unconscious mind, and you treat it as a fashion accessory. Whereas I don't treat it as a fashion accessory. Hence, the phone I'm sitting with is 6 years old, and it does exactly what I want it to do. And I don't update the software on it or anything, and it still functions. And I can buy any cable on the high street and charge it up. Now, you can't buy any cable and get your cell phone to charge. You have to use their own cables, which cost how much? 20 quid a piece?
Yeah.
How much does it cost to manufacture it?
Well,
20 pence? 20
Nothing.
pence.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah. So, they've sold us everyday items that nowadays a cell phone is a necessity because we're all mobile workers, if you like. Yeah, so it's a necessity. They've taken a necessity, like good health is a necessity, and turned it into a fashion. Yeah. So my proposal is how successful have they been in now getting us to believe that good health is actually a fashion statement which has a limited lifespan. You can only really be healthy for 25 years of your working life, which is the lifespan of a mortgage. After that, you start to deteriorate. Yeah, and that's engineered obsolescence, including cities and stuff. I still don't have enough. What I'm saying is that from what you guys are telling me, from the analysis that I'm making, people are doing this by consent, and therefore I can't ban it. I can't ban it because you have yet to prove to me that you are not benefiting from it. Yes, you're benefiting from it because you're using it as a fashion accessory. Yeah. So if people are still using it as a fashion accessory, and they say fashion is seasonal, and there are 4 seasons in Europe and in America, and there are 2 seasons in the Mediterranean. Yeah. So it looks like you guys want cell phones to be fashionable.
However, health, Mark, is not fashionable. Health is a goddamn given right. Why shouldn't we all become 125 years old?
Well,
And it's the public, who feels... Let's look at our breakfast table. We eat a very, very healthy breakfast. We've got everything to eat on the table, which the Hansa people in the Himalayas eat, who become 130 years old. The women give birth even up to the age of 70. Not all of them, but it is possible. What do we eat? We need fruit, apples, nuts, beans, pulses, many, many healthy things. But people now believe, oh gosh, no, that doesn't taste good. So food has become fashionable rather than eating the healthy foods, which means the palate maybe will have to change a little bit. They're so used to eating, the food of the additives. Eating healthy has also become fashionable, and that's very, very worrying because we should all become 125 years old without chronic disease till the end.
I've noticed when I think back over my life, when supermarkets first came about, and it became fashionable as being more convenient, everything under one roof. And so the local shops have died, the local greengroceries have been phased out of the market and stuff like that, where you could buy better produce than you could in the supermarket. So they've engineered the fact that we need this. So they engineer the demand by the advertising, and then they dump whatever they want on us once we're used to it, and then all we get is the rubbish. We go around most supermarkets now to buy one item or another, or you prefer some brand and the other one hasn't got. And when you look at the range of, all the tins and the boxes are the same, just a different label. But when you look at the range of fruit and veg and fresh products that we have today, nothing compares to what we had years ago in the markets. And it's so deteriorated, it's so disgusting to look at. The sizes have been reduced, the flavour is bland, nothing of what we was used to back in the day. So there's the result of it. We're being convinced, we're converted, and then we're given the rubbish at the end. And again, our lives are obsolete once we're on that cycle because of how they affect us.
Yeah, very well put. Actually, I personally cannot eat 95% of things which are in the supermarket, but most people can. And the food simply isn't nutritious enough. We've all been convinced that white bread and processed grains and white rice and things like that are healthy for us, but indeed they're not. And people become more diabetic, they develop more chronic diseases, heart diseases, strokes, cancer, and it's all linked. It is very, very convenient. Yeah.
So we're fat and starving to death at the same time. That's great. So the food is high in calories, empty calories, low in nutrients and minerals. It's disgusting, really. I know that a strawberry and a tomato, it's half of what it was in the 50s. So it's disgusting, really. It really is. I know when I was younger, I would buy, let's say, a cola bottle sweet, which is so big, for 1p. Now I can buy the same sweet for 1p, but it's a third of the size.
But it doesn't end there, Mus. We buy the products. It's killing us, we know, but we don't know any different. But they have a solution. If you're too fat, you can buy this. You can go on this diet and many other fads. So it's perpetual. You fall into the same trap.
Problem reaction solution.
Yeah. So, but the solutions are not solutions. They make it more problematic.
Yeah. So they can get more.
There you
revenue.
go. There you go.
I would actually like to buy a washing machine which lasts 50 years. Why not? Because that's what my grandmother had. She bought a dry tumbler in the 50s, and when she died in 2004, that machine was still working perfectly.
Yeah.
Why should we not have this? It's our right, I think. I would like to use a computer program which doesn't need to get upgraded all the time. And then it becomes obsolescence, and I can't scam people for the same things I did 5 years ago.
We should have choice. If you want to keep a machine for 50 years, you keep a machine for 50 years. If you fancy something after 10 years because you like the look of it, then that's up to you. You're spending your money as you please. We're not being made compelled to have to spend our money for no reason other than it breaking down and it becomes problematic. Now, washing machines I can repair. The amount of repairs I've done at our own washing machine and products, if you paid an engineer for that, it's more than what the machine's worth. You could probably buy 10 machines. One particular model, for experience, what was it, at least 2-3 times a year? And because it's like three years old, you think, well, you haven't had any use out of it. But if you paid an engineer to come outside of warranty, it's just too much. So therefore, you buy a new machine. And a friend of mine is of the mindset, well, I'll buy a cheap £250 machine because they keep breaking down, or the water is, the scale gets it. So it's cheaper than repairing, I'll just buy a new one, which makes sense. So from personal experience, I do see these things, and yeah.
I mean, one thing that springs to mind when you talk about this kind of stuff is printers, really. You can pick up a semi-reasonable printer for like 35 quid, 40 quid, but the ink costs so much, and you know, it's engineered not to last too long, so you're not getting the best for your money, really. So I think that's another rip-off, really, these printers.
We was just recently talking about laser printers with Mark. In fact, he's got rid of one, and I had a similar machine. But a long while ago, I probably had it less than 5 years. But a few years ago, I realised that the front end of the sale, buying the printer, was quite reasonable because you had a set of ink cartridges with it in a laser printer.
Yeah.
And I worked out it was far cheaper to buy a new printer when the ink cartridges run out than buying a set of cartridges, which are like £300 to £400 per set.
Yeah.
So even though you run out of ink, you'd have a new machine perpetually because it was part of the deal.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Outrageous.
You know, there's a movie, a documentary that was made in 2010 about planned obsolescence. And that would have been made by the industry itself to let you know that we have planned the obsolescence of everything in your life. Yeah. So they've told people that we've engineered these things, and obviously people haven't objected. They've remained silent, and what do we call that, Mus?
Acquiescence. We acquiesce to whatever they put in front of us. We shut up and acquiesce.
Now,
Tacitly.
yeah, so tacit agreement and acquiescence is a system where if you remain silent, you consent to it. Tacit agreement is, because you remain silent, you're now in tacit agreement. The actual original words of what tacit means is it means no contract. It means there's no consent there. The other element is the acquiescence. That also means no contract. So you haven't given consent. However, if you are moving and talking like a corporation, calling your wife your partner, you know, and all this kind of bullshit words that is of corporate language, then of course you are, out of your own mouth, you are saying that you are corporate and therefore you're subject to tacit and obsolescence. So they have made the language of men and women obsolete, in place, gave you a corporate language so you can talk and walk and talk like a corporation, so you may constantly acquiescence with their obsolescence. So the lesson here is, if you tidy up your language, you get to control obsolescence. Yeah? And plus, because I plan things, like, you know, people tell me, why don't you go and get a car? You know, why? It's like a fraction of the price for me to catch a cab. You know, a car where we live is a complete and utter liability. Why would I want to take up a liability? That's obsolescence. That's obsolescent thinking. Because a car makes you look sexy, you drive fast down it, or it makes you look dignified like a Rolls Royce. Why would I want to buy these kind of things? I'm not buying it for fashion. I mean, the clothes I'm wearing now are the clothes that I've been wearing for 12 years, you know. and like, this top that is actually Susanna's. It's from Egypt. I don't buy any clothes. I have no use for it. I have one suit. I have one pair of trainers. And when one of my pair of trainers wears out, or it's not, you know, obsolescence has kicked in, I keep it for the garden and for painting and decorating with, you know. I have gym clothes and I have one suit. Although I have loads of shirts because the shirts get dirty, so sometimes I need lots of them. That's the only thing. I have one suit, one pair of shoes, and one trainer, and everything else is for, gardening or painting or stuff like that.
But Mark, you're wearing your favourite things, aren't you?
Yeah.
But we have that. We can have a wardrobe full of clothes we spend so much money on, and yet we wear jeans, we wear our everyday favourites, and we just open it to look at them sometimes. Maybe on occasion you get invited to go out, you wear them, but you don't wear everything. But you have it. We've got wardrobe stuff that we don't use and we don't even throw away. So that bogs you down. At the end of the day, you can only wear or drive or live in one thing at a time. There you have it.
Yeah.
It's a consumer mentality. I mean, even if you look at the word, the consumption. I mean,
and that is a disease. Sorry to cut in, but that's listed as a disease because you can die of what?
Consumption.
Of consumption.
So this is how, the subconscious starts to stand down, because we know what's going on deep down. We know what's going on, and we allow it to happen.
Okay, look, let me give you an example. As I said, I plan most things, okay, and I just don't buy things out of a whim because I like it. And if I did, it might be a food item because I'm fond of food, But I do regret buying some certain items of food which I don't go back visiting, But that's me. Like I wanted to buy a printer, and the printer that I wanted was a laser printer, but it kept coming up as the most expensive. So I made a tragic mistake of buying a reasonable printer, what they call low-cost laser printer, okay? But the cartridges for it are like near enough £200 a set. Now they've gone up to £240 a set, and they only give you an amount of volume of printing that I do, about 400 pages. That's an astronomical high price. However, if I would have bought a very expensive laser printer, the cartridges would have been expensive. But either way, the calculation said you're still going to pay a lot of money for this carbon printer, or what they call laser printer. But I bought one anyway. I found it to be cumbersome, incredibly heavy, way too expensive, having to look for cartridges when I go around different parts of the world or country, and I can't get the bloody cartridges. I've got no printer. So what did I do with it? I shelved it, and I got so fed up with having this heavy, bulky thing in my, I chucked it out. In fact, I said, Alpha, I'm going to chuck this out. If you want it, have it, but I'm going to chuck it out. It's got a full cartridge. I paid full cartridge money for it. If you want it, you can have it. Otherwise, that's going to go in a bin. I'm going to give it out free next to the bin. Put, free, take it away, whatever it is.
I fixed it.
Yeah, I fixed it, got it working. But is it worth fixing such a thing because you have to spend like 200 quid for a set of cartridges? Are you kidding me? 200 quid? So do a little bit of research, and the people that create the obsolescence always give you a way out. He who creates a problem always have to give you a solution. If anybody creates a debt, they have to give you the mechanism to come out of that debt. I know that mechanism so well because I operate it. Do a bit of research. Luckily, Irene told me this printer will print 12,000 copies. 12,000 copies on a single cartridge, and the cartridges to refill can be done by refill, which costs like 5-6. What's another example of engineered obsolescence? I'm thinking to myself, when I first heard this, I was in one of Ian Crane's lectures, I think. Who's passed away now, Ian Crane's lecture. And I was telling people there that, the clockmakers, they made a perfect mechanism because it needed to be in order to tell the time. You can't mess about with it. So the engineering on mechanical clockmaking is so perfect that it will keep on telling time. And the wear and tear is so minimum that you really don't need to service it like every year or so. It's just you serve it once every 5-6 years. However, that means, the only price they get for it is the price you paid for it. Okay, so what they do is that they usually will find a component in that mechanism, clockwork mechanism, and engineer it for brittleness. So it's calibrated for it to break down and take it to the clockmaker's shop for fixing, to buy the components and things. So they'll pick a component or two and manufacture that by calibration as to when it should fail. So let's imagine that one piece of a cog, they'll make one of the teeth in the cog very brittle, or they will shave it so it's a lot less substantial, in weight and thickness, and that's guaranteed to break down usually around about, say, 2-3 years. That means you need to take it in to the clockmaker, put the component in, and of course he has to service it now because it's component, and he has to recalibrate it because it's a new component, and then the whole thing goes on, and then you get billed, and essentially they've turned a perfectly good working mechanism that will tell the time for 1,000 years into engineered obsolescence. That's another example, mechanically.
Yeah.
Engineered obsolescence.
Speaking by experience, because it's something I can vouch for. If I physically see something or experience something, it is mechanical things, especially cars. The complexity is built in the modern car, so you need machinery, equipment, and everything to diagnose it. And I noticed it more so when I've bought new vans. My latest one, which I bought new again, and it could go 25,000 miles, 20,000 miles, and something's gone wrong. And what I've learned to do is look at forums, see if anyone's had similar problems, similar experience. And what you do find is the same thread. All these vehicles have the same problem about the same amount of mileage and time. Some are just outside of warranty, some are within, so if you're lucky you can get it done. But it's the same thing, and that tells me that it's been put there on purpose. And it might only be a small component, probably £30, but you take it into the garage to be diagnosed, and it's a minimum of £500 to £800 to sort that one little component out. The main dealer will do that. In my case, it was a component with a pipe fitted into the system. It's part of the emission control system, which is another failure mechanism that they've built in, emission controls. And this pipe alone, and it's only about 6 inches long, very small diameter, gets clogged up with the gunge of the diesel and the afterburn and everything. And that alone, that component alone is about £500 at the main dealer. So it's about 6 inches long.
Wow.
Plus the other component, which you can buy third-party ones, aftermarket ones for about £30. They're about £200. So by the time you've finished having it repaired, the vehicle can cost you £1,200 for something simple that you can do. But you can't buy the pipe. You can buy the other components, but no one produces that pipe, even aftermarket. So that's built-in obsolescence.
Wow. What about you, Susanna? Any other? I mean, you grew up with your grandmother, you grew up with your mother, several generations, and they had several generations of technology running. and you said that the old technology lasted 50 years, just a simple washing machine.
Well, I remember we lived many years in Egypt, and the Egyptians were very, very good at recycling cars. And there were certain models, the Peugeot model, which was really, really valued in Egypt, actually across the Middle East. And we'd come in with a brand new Italian car, Romeo, this or that, and Egyptians weren't keen on that. But they were really keen on the Peugeot. And they would fix it, do everything manually, sell it at a high cost, and they're still driven till today in Cairo streets, being a very, very valued car.
So that's a good example of car manufacturer behaving themselves to provide good quality cars. So there are things out there that are not necessarily so badly engineered for failure, but just wear and tear. Wear and tear, of course, we can accept, but wear and tear engineered is what we call planned obsolescence. So the Peugeot had a good name on reliability, but it doesn't have that in this country because they engineer it. So I suppose the country would say, well, look, take out the engineered obsolescence, give us our car, give us the cars that we want for the people, so they're not too burdened with the car because we want to build up the economy. So we want something really reliable, like the Volkswagen Beetle, produced by the Germans, albeit commissioned by Adolf. That would run, and it wasn't a radiator one. It was air fan cooled engine, and it was built for the peasants, to run forever. And they became collector's items, and they're still run in Brazil and those sort of countries now, because there's those air-cooled engines still run to this day.
It was based upon the helmet of the German soldiers.
Was it?
Yeah, that's the shape of the helmet. So it was based to look like the German kind of main helmet.
So that perfect mechanism, almost near perfect mechanism, has a cost to it. There's an extra fee, subliminal clipping of accepting of German helmets. There's always a cost, isn't there?
It brings something to mind where we went to Turkey some years ago, drove there, and we got a cab, and they had a very similar car to a Ford Taunus, which was called a Corsair over here, and Taunus in other countries. And basically, it was a rust bucket. So we talking to the Turkish cabbies over there. I'm saying, well, said, yeah, we make it over here, he said. We make it out of wood. I said, wood? You can't make cars out of wood. It's not impossible. I said, so that intrigued me, and I've done a bit of research, found out it's fiberglass. So to get over the problem of being rusty, the Turks made the same vehicle, out of fiberglass. So the engineered obsolescence of being a rust bucket, because that's what I put it to, because you had the technology to rust-proof vehicles or metalwork back then. Yeah, and you don't find that so much today because it's sort of built out. And that sort of woke me up to that from that time. Another example, because I'm quite technically minded, is when the computers first came out, they was out of reach of most people's pockets, so we decided to build our own. So we were successful building it, together with the kids as I was growing up. Had that sort of mind. But we found we had to either upgrade it or build a new machine once every 2 years because of Windows. Microsoft, we was buying more advanced software to run on it, and it wouldn't run, it was limited, and it was continually upgrading all the time until the max what we have today. This is going back a while now. We bought my son convinced me to buy a Mac. Never considered it. And as they say, once you've had a Mac, you ain't turning back. And yeah, it's premium money. They do last a bit longer, but you're still paying premium money when you have to come back to it, because that has a limited, because the software's not obsolescence, but it's not supported. So, but we found a way to get around that. We can upgrade any machine software-wise. My son can anyway. Keep up to date.
So there's always a way out. Just requires a little bit more intelligence.
Yeah, and if you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Look, so we've covered what the mechanisms, covered the software. I think we only kind of touched upon the crime against mankind is to engineer the obsolescence of their life through the use of food, water, medication, advertising, warfare, recruitment centers, because that's all engineered obsolescence. As soon as you sign up, they nom de guerre you, which means they've already recorded you as a subject for experimentation. Turned you into a human as well, which means that you're a corporate entity, a production, and you're a being as opposed to creation. If the audience is not aware of that, then they can listen to some of my video presentation and learn about it. Can we explore a little bit more about what these things are personally to us, especially the engineered obsolescence of our own life? The fact that somebody has, like for example, International Foods or the pharmaceutical, or what umbrella organization do they come under? I've forgotten. Life Sciences, which is hundreds of corporations, including medical. Their only interest is to make as much profit as they can at your expense. In other words, just like the BBC, you pay the BBC to be lied to. So that's like that's like you paying a rapist to rape you. That's how successful these people are in doing what they do. Yeah. What idiot pays a rapist to get raped by? Can't hire a gigolo, obviously. Yeah. So I don't want to underestimate how incredibly effective they are at engineering into you, like the BBC, that you have to pay to be lied to. Because if they didn't do that, then they would be in real trouble, because that means they haven't got your consent. So I want to explore that. I want to be able to expand upon what I just said. That's the mechanism that they want to walk you into, because without that consent to be raped, it really would be rape. And then you can go after them. Yeah, so they use so much trickery
for you to suffer it.
To come onto them, to suffer little children, to come onto them.
To suffer is via consent, isn't it?
Suffer means, in common law, it means exactly that.
If you suffer a raping, Mark, you consent to it. So if the judge says to you, did you suffer at the hands of Alpa? Did he break your neck and break your wrist and lacerate your hand? You say, yes, Your Honour, I suffered. You chose to.
But consciously, I did not know that.
No.
Subconsciously, it knows that.
Yes.
Unconsciously, it knows suffer means rape by consent.
I mean, let's look at heavy metals. Mercury, lead, and so on. There was a tendency 30, 40 years ago to use amalgam fillings for people who had cavities. Now, we all had them done because we believed that's what needed to be done, and they were affordable. So we all consented to it. But we did not know at the time that the amalgam would cause so much damage to our own organs, our neurotransmitters, and actually they act as carcinogens in people as well. Many people had strokes. My thyroid got affected. And these are lifelong consequences I personally have to live with till today. And these are just crimes. They're not, we just walked into them. We didn't consent. In that sense, there was, how can I say, there was faith.
Yeah.
We had faith in the dentist as we had faith in certain drugs, because you can't explore everything into every detail all the time.
No.
But this is in the end what we end up doing. We have to research and research and research and find out the details ourselves. And where has faith gone? Trust. What happened to it? What happened to trust? I can't trust any dentist anymore. I ask, what's in the composite filling before you put it in my mouth? Now, that's rare. 99% or maybe 99.9% of the population wouldn't do that.
Some bits and pieces, 30, 40 years ago, what you're talking about, we didn't know 30, 40 years ago. The amalgam and fillings that you're talking about that actually is calibrated to harm you was only removed a few years back. Only a few years back. And the BBC, under name and shame, actually told everybody what the amalgam fillings will do to you if you continue having this, under name and shame. But the people would not do it. They remain daft. They remain daft because they don't have the vocabulary. Because in school, if you question the teacher, they'd have the right to beat you. Those days, they would physically try to punish me. But that never used to happen because I would fight back. Are you sure, you piece of donkey shit, you want to fucking fight with me? Because I will hit you back. Twice they got away with it, but other times they said, no, it ain't happening. If you want to go down that route, I'm going to pick that up and smash it over your fucking head. How are you going to play with this now?
I mean, that means we are really running on programs, Mark. That's scary.
Yeah, we're programmed, as Mustafa would say, for what?
We're programmed for
suffering.
Yeah, to suffer. But even in some religious, they say Christianity is suffering, Buddhism is suffering. They put it in us. We're here to suffer. Why? Why? Could be heaven on earth.
For me, it's one thing to be fooled into something and it cost you something, expense, money, whatever it is one thing. And what was profound when I learned it's the same, similar, there's nothing new, mechanism to harm our health. And I connect the two where with foods, Suzanne spoke about earlier, I look at it as the food and the stuff that they put in there is like the breadcrumbs. Yeah, they're walking you into harm. It's like throwing breadcrumbs to a bird, but you want to catch it and you probably want to eat it. Yeah, so you can fool them that way. And that's what's really happened to us. We've got the going through the advertising. We have the breadcrumbs. The foods already harm us. But they go another step further with the pharmaceuticals when they put us in that condition and trouble because of the food and the toxicity of everything around us. And now they can go to the next stage. It's probably worth more money to them, treating us. We know what treatment means, as he explained a little while ago.
Well, explain it to us.
It's prolonging the suffering. Prolonging the condition.
So if I want to treat your cancer, what am I saying to you?
You're prolonging it. You're prolonging the suffering. So I'm a customer.
So quite literally, it means that I'm going to look after the cancer, and to hell with you because you're just simply the host to the cancer.
That's
and
right.
that's a psychological thing. 99.9% of the people have not bridged. They don't understand the use of words like human rights. It's the same trick that they've played, and I've broken the code on Yeah. So, yeah.
Another big thing, following all the twists and turns of this scamdemic we've gone through the last 2 years, was how they treated the old people, how they engineered the old people to be moved out of the hospitals, which was strange at the time, but we didn't know the reason why. But as more and more came out, if you remember, the Health Minister Hancock at the time, they authorised midazolam and something else, I forget, morphine, a large supply to be supplied to the homes and everything. And that's what they was using, and the doses were so high that it was killing the old people.
So we're dealing with not killing, but murder.
Murder, that's what we're
Murdering the old people, because killing means what?
Yeah.
Killing means culling.
Yeah.
Murdering means to tear into the flesh of men and women.
I know of some cases that have been brought about, but the judges have been sort of overturning the presentation of the case, and that is the case. And looking further, that is what's happened. Because previous to that, they ordered a larger supply of what they normally have of those components.
I mean, there's nothing new in all this. It's like what Mark was saying earlier. I mean, it's like what it says in the Bible. You know, my people are dying due to a lack of knowledge. And this is what's happening now. We're not being told about certain sensitizers. We're not told about certain poisons. We're not told about a lot of things. And we're just walking off the cliff like lemmings. So knowledge is power.
So I have a proposal then. Because my job here is to act like the devil's advocate. You know, to thwart this, okay? Because it needs to stand up to that integrity. We've just told the audience. We've told each other. And I've yet to go on to another horror, which is organ harvesting by consent. And I'll explain that if you guys remind me. Everybody listening to this on YouTube have now been educated. What you guys going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to sit there in a moan, have another meeting about a meeting, perhaps even have another meeting about meetings after meetings. What are you going to do?
But we want some effective way.
I ain't giving it to you.
Well, we make sure we get an effective way.
Well, I don't want to give it to you.
We'll make you.
Well, how are you going to make me?
So there's not enough knowing, you've got to know how.
Well, you're asking my permission. You're asking my permission to give you back your life. I'm saying I'm not giving it back to you.
Because I'm going to lose out. You're going to lose out.
I'm going to lose out.
Yeah.
So bugger you. You know, you just stay where the way you are. I ain't giving it to you.
So this is where the knowledge, you know, where you can actually take back your life is important.
You're going to ask a Nazi camp keeper, go up to him and say, "Please, sir, can I have my freedom?" I mean, that's engineered. You know, I don't want this edited out. That's engineered, fucked up thing in your brain that you go to the rapist and say, "Can you please confess your rape so I can take you to court?" I ain't giving it to you. Yeah. You're going to have to take it off me, and I'm bigger and stronger than every single one of you. How are you going to take it off of me?
Well, as we know, it's all by consent, whether by deception, and it usually is by deception. And we've just got to look at like-minded people and the mechanisms to be able to stop them, not go to them, something outside of them that can you know, make a difference.
So he wants to come out with in masses. That's called an attack, and my mass is much bigger than your mass.
And you've got more guns.
And I've got bloody more guns. He wants to do it passive-aggressive way. I've dealt with passive-aggressives all my life. You ain't won. You ain't won the argument. I ain't giving it back to you. What are you going to bloody do? I control your life. What are you going to do?
Personal responsibility.
What do you mean?
Like, for example, I take personally responsibility for my food, for what I eat. I'm going to educate myself. I know the Hansa people live 130 years. I explore what they eat. So I know they eat apricots, apricot kernels, fresh produce, vegetables, beans, onions, stuff like that. That's
Knowledge
one
is
way
power.
forward. Knowledge is power.
So you're going to try to bypass me.
Yeah, I would.
But I control the food supply as well.
I grow my own.
I ain't giving you the land. I control the land as well.
Yeah, that's true in California.
Well, in this country
Yeah.
too, because if you don't have permission to grow vegetables in the front garden, I can stop you. In America, if you grow vegetables,
Get arrested.
they say that you're doing farming on a non-farm land
Yeah.
and take the vegetables away.
Oh,
God.
Yeah, in some of the islands in Hawaii, if you take water from your rooftop to water your plants, they say you're water harvesting and take it away and prosecute you and put you in prison.
so what alternative have we got? Well, we know of a judge. I wonder if he'll help us.
The answer is no, because I ain't paying for your guys' miseries. I ain't paying for no freedom passes.
So what have we got then?
Not getting any freedom passes out of me. No, I'm not doing that.
What have we got then? What are the options? We have the mechanisms of the tricks and traps, and we've got to stand up for ourselves as people. And well, I don't know whether just an individual basis, but that's all we know at the moment. We don't have that knowledge and power, but we can use that as we've been using for methods of getting out of debt, not giving our consent, and so forth. So I suppose that would be a starting point of getting this rolling in putting things into say correctness. That's all I have.
I ain't impressed.
So not playing isn't an option.
I ain't impressed.
So, I mean, you can't just
I'm sitting here as proud can be as the peacocks outside. I've got every single one of you's lives in my pocket, and I control it. And you haven't even put a dent on me. You ain't even gone anywhere near me. You know, I'm still the king of the pin, king of the hill, as it were.
You keep mentioning the stroke of a pen.
What does that mean? I didn't say that. That was a Freudian slip, might be. You know, I didn't say anything.
Penny's
about that.
mightier than the sword.
Penny's mightier than what idiot told you
I heard that
you know?
somewhere.
Well, you're going to say that, aren't you?
No, that's idiot talk, isn't it? Pen is my. How are you going to fence with my sword with your pen? How are you going to do that?
And the pen is perpetual. The pen that what the pen writes is forever.
You're making a squirm now, aren't you?
All right, let me up the ante a little bit then. So I've come out of my devil advocate's role, and I'll up the ante. As you know, every single one of you has got a credit card or gone through some sort of mortgage system, a bank account, and with that you signed away your power of attorney. You signed away your power of attorney. I took all of your power of attorney and they're in my pocket because you consented to it. Every single one of you. Yeah, whether that's in Hinduism, Christianity, Muslim, German church, or whatever it is, you gave that consent in my pocket. Yeah, I still hold it, and I still hold on to you because you gave me the consent, and I ain't letting it go because I gave you something, and you gave me something. That's one. However, what also you did on top is that because I've engineered how long you guys live, I might, through will of kindness, if you pay me £100,000 when you have your kidney failure or liver failure or intestines failure, I'll sell you an organ. And I'm going to get that goddamn organ from this group here, and I'm going to sell it to each other. Yeah? Because I have the right to remove your organ while you're still in hospital, because I can't remove it from a dead man or a dead woman. So I'm going to inject you with warfarin, thin out your blood, Okay, I'm going to take your kidney and any bloody organ that I want, and I'm going to sell it to one of you, to the highest bidder in this room. I'm going to take out his bloody organ, because he's the one that laughed, him, Mustafa. I'm going to whack him over the head, yeah, and call it a car accident. I'm going to take his kidney, take his liver. I'm going to take everything in there that's off worth, and I'm going to sell it to you because I injured every single one of your organs to fail at the time that I want, because you gave me the power of attorney to do that. And I can't take it out of him dead. I can only take him out of him live, when he's live, feeling everything. I can't give him anesthetic, because that kills off the nerve centers. Yeah, not kills it off, it numbs it, which is it's contaminated. So I have to take it off out of him when he's alive, and I'm going to give him warfarin to thin out his blood so much that I have the ability to flush out his blood from that organ, put the artificial blood in, put it in cold storage for transportation, to take it to Alpha's place to sell it to him for £120,000. I've upped the ante. What are you going to do to me now? That's what you've consented to. And the mortgage is calibrated to your lifespan as well. That's 25 years. And out of the goodness of my heart, I gave you another mortgage for extending it for 5 years more. So I give you 5 years of health. And since you've got some little bit of value in your mortgage, in your property, you can always remortgage, can't you, to pay for that organ. I've got you by the testicles, I got you by the back of your ear, I got you by every means that I can. You're not getting away. You're not getting away. This is your property, is my property. Your organs are my organs. You're not moving away. What are you going to do to me now? That's just the plain fact of it. I've upped the ante to make it so personal and so disgusting to every senses in your body, in your mind. I've upped the ante. I've told you that you don't even have your own organs in your own body because they're my property.
Truthfully, Mark, what needs to happen? You need to be taken out.
By you? Not a bloody chance. Ain't happening. How are you going to take me out, Moss?
I don't know, but
fighting me? I don't do cage fighting.
We've come to the conclusion that you need to be taken out.
With what?
We'll have to think about that.
I can provide you guys with a free room, for you to have another meeting. Yeah, and I'm sure you guys will have another meeting for another 100 years, and I'll be still smoking that cigar after selling his organs
and collecting the money for the room for the meeting.
And collecting the money for the meeting. So Mustafa can't use physicality on me because my bodyguards are much bigger than his.
And you have more guns.
And I have more guns. What are you going to do? And I've made it really personal. There's a little bit of comedy in it, just to take the edge of it, but this is the stuff that you have to deal with.
As you come out with that, I'll feel the personal side of it.
Yeah.
And it's quite...
because if you don't feel it, your subconscious mind is not going to give you an answer.
Mm.
It's not going to be able to give you an answer to work it out, because if everything isn't under denial, that it's not ever going to happen to me, but it will always happen to somebody else and never me.
Mm.
You're not going to get it. You're just not going to get it. You have to feel it. How hard did we have to work for a particular boy that we know just to get his driving license, make sure to say, I don't consent to my organs having taken out of me? Because if you don't do that, they will take it as consent. Yeah, how hard to do, and we failed. We failed. That's just plain fact of it. Yeah, plain fact. We failed. That's how strong the programming is. Okay, I'm going to go back into the role. I've made it very clear, and I've told everybody the truth here. I control every single one of you. And still, you haven't got an answer. He's come up with something. I need to be taken out. By what means? Physicality ain't going to work. With a gun, my gun will find him a lot quicker than his gun will.
Habits need to change. Mentalities need to change. Consumption needs to change. Way of life and knowledge. We need to educate ourselves how to eat, how to think, how to breathe, even how to move, we just need to totally reform, because whatever they've told us is back to front and front to back. Everything is the other way around. It's the complete opposite. It's so the other way around that it's a joke. It really is. When you see it, the sleight of hand, you think, what? How could I have ignored it for so long? It's there right in my face for such a long period of time, and I knew it was there, but what? And that's the power that they have, to make the subconscious just stand down, and the conscious not to act on the atrocities that are going on.
Thank you very much for that, Moss. I feel even better now. My program really does work. He's just qualified it. He's just told me I'm the best at what I do, and you got a bloody hope in hell.
Well,
that's just the truth of it. You ain't got a hope in hell. Not a hope in hell of it ever escaping my grip on you. I sold you death pledges. I took your organs away, your life, everything. And if I'm a Muslim, I'll even tell you when to have sex and when not to.
Would I be on
That's
the
how
right?
good I am.
Would I be on the right track when we opened up the conversation that you said they have to provide a way out as well?
I don't remember saying things like that. I don't ever remember. I, in fact, don't remember very much these days.
Problem, solution, reaction. Yeah, he's right.
I don't remember very much these days. I've got Alzheimer's, you see. My memory's
You're asking a judge for legal advice. I ain't going to give it to you. You get in trouble. Practicing law from the bench.
As any lawyer will tell you, we're not here to give you legal advice. I got him to say that as well. Only you guys can ever hire a lawyer, solicitor, and he'll tell you we're not here to give you legal advice.
Sort of shit.
Yeah. You can't use a legal route because that's their system.
Well, you mentioned power of attorney. How can we take our power of attorney back?
You can't, I told you. I'm never going to give it back to you.
But the lease is coming up.
What?
The lease is coming up for renewal. So
what lease?
The 99-year lease. There must be.
Talking about.
There must be a lease on what we.
Okay, that's fine. I'm happy to wait till 99 years to give it back to you. I'm happy. I'll give it back to you when you're 99 years old.
But it's up for renewal now, Mark.
I don't know what you're talking about.
There must be something. Is it something to do with the coroner?
I control that as well. He works for me. She works for me.
Okay, Mark, help us out then.
No, I'm not. I'm not here to help you out. Look, it's just words. It's because I convinced you there's no way out, and you have convinced yourself. You found solutions, but I talked you out of the solutions. Every judge does that. They just talk you out of the solutions. You gave the solutions, but I talked you out of it. Because you took my word as being the fact. You didn't qualify it. You didn't qualify it. That's the tragedy of it. Yeah, the engineered obsolescence, what we started off with, ended up being engineered obsolescence of your life, so I can extract the organs from your body and sell it on, while he's still alive and feels every piece of pain on it.
Just that exercise has proved the point.
Yeah, just
exactly.
Words. My words will take away or give away. As the Bible puts it, the Lord give it and the Lord take it. The Lord take it and the Lord give it. Until I had to break the code on that, and now I give it and I take it. Yeah, you have to break the code on it. Because if you keep asking permission, you're not going to get none. So I don't ask permission. Yeah. Without breaking any of other people's consents, their laws, or copyright infringement, I don't break any of that. But I crack the code on it because I know what is right and I know what is wrong.
It's everything we've learned up to now, especially on my journey and through you. What you just said is not new knowledge. You've brought it out here over many broadcasts and everything, but yet we're still, when we're challenged, we're stuck in the program. We can't seem to get any further than that. We're in the loop, even though we think we know something. Even the minutest detail, well, it's not minute, but even the details we've
got nothing else to replace it with.
Mm.
There's no replacement program, so we need to actively,
So that's a good thing that we can. Sorry to cut in. So I'll come out of my role because he said something. He said that's how powerful. Alpha said that's how powerful the programming is. So I know that with words I can do something, and with the same words I can undo something. So he has the same power. So his words have to have as much weight as mine. If they don't, then it's not going to work. He can't box with me. He can't play cricket with me. And what he's saying is that the programming has to be replaced with another programming, because the programming that the general public is on, as well as here, which I've proven, is that default programming that the pharmaceutical, the education, the Church of England, the mosques, the synagogues, the Hindu temples, the Bindu temples, and the sausage roll temples, whatever half-witted temples there are so successful at it that you have to replace their program with a more dominant program, because my dominant program of their dominant program is having a voice much greater than your own. Even though I'm, beating the crap out of you physically, you are unable to undo the program to be able to replace their voice in your head. The siren goes off and you all blindly walk into the slaughterhouse. And Mustafa's right. So that's one way. You're going to have to replace my dominant voice, my global engineering of obsolescence and obedience to that obsolescence. You have to replace it with a greater one. So I'm going to give you one. Follow Jesus. Follow Muhammad. Follow the pharmaceutical industry. We're back to square one. Yeah.
And before we know it, we've done 60, 70 years, paid enough tax, and we can eat shit and die.
And for those that are not aware what the sausage roll temple is the shop's called Greg's. Sorry about that.
So can we conclude that the voice that people are running on is somebody else's rather than theirs?
Mm-hmm.
I've replaced your own voice with 1,000 other voices to preoccupy you. Hence, you'll never understand, and the general public needs to know that which you do with a pen, you can undo with a pen. That which you do with a word, called a verbal contract, you do with another verbal contract. Yeah, that's what that is. Without your terms and conditions as to how they perform, the pharmaceutical has no directions to follow. So here's what you folks need to understand. Okay, you allowed this to happen to yourself. That's what you've done. You allowed this to happen to yourself because you did not try to control me. Yeah, I'm a pharmaceutical industry. My sole job is to make money, but you did not tell me how to make that money. You did not even tell me whether you should get healthy or not get healthy. You didn't even tell me when you're into a hospital what I should do, what you want from me. You left it all under presumption, assumption, washed your hands off of it, as if you are never answerable for anything. You created this monster. You created the pharmaceutical industry, the government. I even told you 20 years ago that the Muslims are the enemies, and you bought right into it. And I took away your freedoms in America because you allowed yourself to believe the enemy exists outside of you. And I did a few puff of magic smoke in those twin towers, and every single one of you has believed that's all for real, and I gave you an effigy called Salman. What's his name? The guy bought
Bin Laden.
Bin Laden, Osama bin Laden. I gave you Osama bin Laden, and you fell for a puppet. He doesn't even exist. And I took away all of your freedom and all of your mortgages and all of your banks and all of your rights. I bankrupted your entire country because I got you to believe that the Muslims were your enemies. Out of your own mouths and your own eyes, you lost everything. Ask any American, ask any Canadian, ask any European. The Muslims are coming, the Muslims are coming. That's how fucking comical people are. Or humans. That is how pathetic people are. And I never forget those things.
It is very stupid.
Yeah. Not once did we ever ask, and I got to take responsibility for this as well, because I was scratching my head as to how they pulled this one off. Yeah. It's like, we never asked them to prove if the Twin Towers really was struck by aeroplanes. We never asked them to prove it. That's what you got to do. Prove to us that this was done by Osama bin Laden and that aeroplanes struck this. Because if you did, you'll have to understand that you make yourself look like a fool. But if you put it on paper or verbalize it, the powers to be do not care whether you're a fool in questioning, a fool in prosecution, or whatever. It's a simple question. What I looked at on the telly, did that really happen? Did that really happen? Did those people actually die? Oh yeah, those human beings died. No, hold on a minute. How many registered corporations were on that? It's exactly the amount of humans that died on that building. It's those sort of calibrations. Simple question revealing your ignorance. It's like, I really do not know what I'm looking at because it's a television, and a television is a stage show.
Theatre.
It's a theatre. Yeah? And I actually believe the theatre. It's like, prove to me that aeroplanes went into the Twin Towers. Prove to me. I need to see it on paper, and I need to see that paper authorized. That means it needs to carry your autograph and thumbprint. If it doesn't, you've just lied. You just lied. You claim statins, drugs will do this. Prove to me, under the penalty of perjury, that this does exactly what that is. Put your thumbprint and you do the same thing. Otherwise, I'm going to have to put your arrest warrant out on you, which you can do because I now control the Crown Prosecution Service. People don't think like that. It's because I'm way too clever to think that I be fooled with the Twin Towers. I'm way too clever. No more statins are not going to do anything to me. I'm way too clever. Yeah. Oh, this is not a statin problem that I'm getting a heart attack from. This is something else. Eating too much sausage rolls. It's got nothing to do with the direct ill effects of the fucking medication. Nothing to do with that. It's just something else. And it would never happen to me. It would happen to somebody else. It will happen to you, but never to me, Mus. I'm immune from all these things. Don't matter me and you take the same drugs, but it will never happen to me. People are in perpetual state of denial, totally and utterly convinced of everything they see on television. They never pen a letter out, put anybody under the penalty of perjury because they're shitting themselves that they'll get, something will happen to them. So they don't do anything. Until on YouTube, I said to them, look, YouTube has given you the entire mechanism how to become a republic, but you're not using it. All you have to do is put a comment section, and 1,001 people, all have to do is tick on that comment section, and you've now elected that man or woman as the fact of speaking something. If you put on the thumbs up on my YouTube channel, you are endorsing me for doing what I'm doing. And that's a republic, not a democracy. So if you've got like 1,000 thumbs up on somebody just commenting, that's called endorsements. Everybody else is doing it too, your corporations and so on. We're endorsing her to stand for election. When's the last time you bloody endorsed anything? When's anybody ever endorsed any one of my letters? Mama, we don't. No, it's like, that's the solution, isn't it? It's as simple as that. I just don't buy into any of these things. I don't know how they did the Twin Towers, but the community of, what do you call them? Computer-generated images tell me this is a very simple thing to do. It's a very simple thing to do. Yeah, we can do all that for you. You know, we can superimpose images, people jumping out the windows, all of that, and that can be all televised. And if you tell people, you know, that you're being fooled, they say, no, I can't be fooled like that. I'm not that much of an idiot. Yeah, you are, mate. You are a bloody idiot. That's what they are. What does idiot mean? What's
One's own.
I think it means thinking of a slave.
Yeah, well, yeah. You work outside of the group. Legally, it means you work outside of. If a judge says to you you're an idiot, you know you're going home. It's a good day.
Oh,
Because,
okay. He's using the right thinking.
Yeah.
Because an idiot is thinking outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you ever hear a judge utter the word, this is the most idiotic case I've ever come across, you know you're going home. Because you've worked outside of the McDonald's Corporation, you've worked outside of the Girl Guides, you've worked outside of the toddler group, and you've done things by yourself. So, you know.
Well, I've realised also that you can learn all this stuff or remedies or whatever, but it's the action that counts. You have to do something. If you're passive, it's just...
When good people do nothing.
Yeah, and that's what happens. So for those that are listening as well, and ourselves, it means getting off your butt and actually putting these things into effect and making things happen, because there is a mechanism there. And we should take full responsibility, not just being called idiots, but accept that we are idiots. Because once you take responsibility for something, now change can happen.
I mean, you know, best place to start is the fool or the idiot, because everybody starts as a fool or an idiot, but because the fool who continues his folly soon becomes wise, you know, if you're allowed to. You know, so.
What's that saying that David Wayne Miller used to say? You study. When you study, you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And when you study more, I've forgotten the saying. But
yeah, you realise how much more you don't know. The more you know, the more you realise how much you don't know.
Something like that. And then you get to a conclusion of wisdom. You get to a conclusion of wisdom. I think he puts it very eloquently, and I've forgotten. But also another saying he uses, which is...
Knowledge put into practice is wisdom.
Pain equals thought.
Yes.
So people need to experience pain, it looks like the corona period. They're going to go through a lot of pain. Yeah, because pain wakes you up like nobody else. I know that from personal experience. I mean, real pain. Pain where you've lost all hope, you know, and you're lying in bed and thinking, my life is essentially over. That's it. There is nothing else.
I hate that.
And then something happens. You know, I remember that happened to me in the Peacock Gym. I was sitting there and thinking, you know, like it's all over. It's all done. And then when I went really quiet, that internal rattle just switched itself off. And then when it switched itself off, very slowly, what seemed like very slowly, but it happened milliseconds, everything that I need to do revealed itself within that second. And they, you know, use that horrible word called revelation, which means nolation. I'll go on to that another time, the poisoning of the word. So I had to really go down that hole and say, I don't know anything. And that's how I proceed. when I'm faced with a challenge, I know nothing. Without you saying that you know nothing, that's why you're being challenged. When you know nothing, that's when you get the wisdom. When you're training me, Mus, do I ever tell you how things are done, how you should train me? Apart from don't push it too hard. None of that 5,000 an hour calorie burning training. Never.
No.
Never, ever do I do that. I just reveal is my ignorance to him, and he educates me and puts it into work. Without that, without people actually saying to themselves, I know nothing, I'm as ignorant can be, they're not ever going to get wisdom or anything like that. Yeah. So pain equals thought. And then you get a little bit of wisdom. When you get that wisdom, you put it into practice and you realize you know a lot more than you think. And all you're doing is just purging yourself of all that garbage that they put into us.
You think of this corona period, Mark, when you've got all these nurse actors, you've got all these doctor actors, you've got all these crisis actors, and then you've got people saying, no, this corona's real. It happened to my auntie. We went into hospital and she died a horrible death. Well, yeah, of course, because you've got all these actors filling your brains with bullshit. And if you really saw that sleight of hand, you would realise that they got you right from the start. You know, this is why they've done a good job on some people. They really have, because their family members have died right in front of their eyes of this supposed deadly coronavirus, and then they've gone through this whole theatre with the NHS.
And when you go into the operating what?
Theatre.
You said it. It's all a theatre show. You actually telling me they're going to remove your organ as a theoretical, theatrical, how do you pronounce it?
Theatrical.
Yeah, theatrical performance. And the audience listening to this have to understand that the goddamn fucking horror of what I'm saying is that under the principles of Shakespearean theatre show, they're killing you on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Which bit of this does the audience not get? If you don't get it, fuck off my channel, is what I would say.
I recall some of the images they were showing of the so-called theatres and wards of treating people for so-called the COVID. At a glance, it looks real. But when certain ones, or you come onto a channel that they point out, no, they're treating a dummy. It's a dummy. And when you look closer to the picture, it really is a dummy.
Mm.
Yeah, and the film crew are there at the right time, at the right place to take this picture, to broadcast to you. But it's all made up.
Have you seen the film Interview with a Vampire?
Yes.
And there's one bit in the film where they're in the theatre, and they're actually gonna kill and sacrifice a young woman, and they're gonna drink her blood in front of everybody. Now the audience think it's theatre, but it's actually real. So they've switched. The sleight of hand is incredible, and the sleight of hand that they've done is so simple and so easy to work out that it's. I remember we used to say this when we were kids. It's so easy, it's hard. It's so simple what they've done. It's complicated.
They've turned horror into a horror theatre show where you lose your life. And that's all done with the reversing of the images, poisoning of the words, which David Wayne Miller broke. And that's how they do it. Look at the language. My wife is my partner. Well, no, she's not your partner.
Yeah.
That's partner means business.
Mm.
She is not your business partner. There is no other word for it. That's your spouse is the correct word, spouse.
And we're going to have a ship with one another, some sort of
relationship. And you're not invited in our relationship.
But a companion.
You can have a companion. You can have concubines.
Concubineship.
Concubineship. So, what is it that we're saying? everybody here now understands that operating theatre is a show under Shakespearean license to remove your organs by your consent, which means you yourself are actors in this, and they've hypnotized you in not realizing that you really are just an actor having your organs removed by consent.
And what does a vampire do? He needs, before he comes into your house, what does
He needs your permission.
And consent to come in.
And not only that, he will respect it by doing what? Knocking 3 times. Knocking 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll knock at your door 3 times. And all of his power, he cannot break your threshold. You can tell him, F off. Ugh, how dare you say F off?
It's a universal law, I think.
It is. These are universal laws that mankind has been robbed of because they accepted a sense of false security and allowed themselves to be lied to.
And we have amnesia. We've forgotten.
Collective amnesia, because we gave up our memory to something. We gave up our memory to a theatre show.
Something is.
Yeah. People have to understand that they are the audience, which means that's the authority. And people are the only ones that can do it. Humans cannot. Humans cannot do that. It's only people. People are the only ones that know that they are the authority because they're the audience watching a theatre show. And that world out there, including our host where we are, is a living, walking theatre. And he doesn't know it.
Mm.
And if I was to pluck him out of that, the trauma would be so great, he might go into an anaphylactic
shock.
Anaphylactic shock psychologically. The process would be so cascading, he would know that he's been lied to and cheated all his life, and his friends have died for nothing, his dad died for nothing. It's all for real.